In recent months, the British royal family has been engulfed in a storm of tension and uncertainty. Behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace, fractures within the monarchy have become more visible than ever. King Charles, whose health has shown signs of decline, appears increasingly frail with each public appearance. His struggle has sparked concerns not only about his ability to fulfill royal duties, but also about the looming question of succession. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla has stepped forward with growing authority, consolidating her influence in ways that have left the public divided. To some, she is simply filling a void left by the king's weakening condition. To others, her presence feels like a quiet power grab, reigniting memories of old scandals and resentments that never fully healed. Amid this fragile balance of power, Prince William faces the mounting responsibility of carrying the monarchy's future, while Prince Harry remains estranged across the Atlantic. Each move, each statement, adds fuel to an already volatile atmosphere. The once carefully managed image of unity now appears riddled with cracks. And just when the royal family could least afford more turmoil, today's announcement has shaken the nation. It is an announcement described as both tragic and monumental, one that will undoubtedly reshape how the monarchy is seen at home and abroad. But what does this mean for the stability of the crown? How will the public react to yet another blow to the royal family's fragile standing? And, most importantly, does this mark the beginning of an irreversible shift in royal power? What are your thoughts? Do you believe Camilla's influence is now greater than ever? Or is this the moment for William to step firmly into the spotlight? London awoke to its usual rhythm. Tourists at Buckingham Palace, guards in perfect stillness, and the palace gates shining under morning light, projecting timeless stability. Yet behind the grandeur, unease brewed. By mid-morning, the mood shifted. Journalists stirred, cameras realigned, and the royal press secretary appeared, his tense posture betraying the gravity of the moment. When he spoke, his steady voice masked a tremor. The king's health was far more serious than the palace had admitted. In an instant, the image of control fractured, and the world realized the monarchy's carefully guarded facade was beginning to unravel. In a single moment, months of speculation hardened into reality. Rumors that had once lingered at the edges about fatigue, about meetings abruptly cancelled, about secret visits to medical specialists, were no longer whispers. They had now been laid bare in black and white. The press secretary may have tried to sound composed, but the truth he carried shattered the illusion of control. Something inside the monarchy, something vital, was unraveling. The cameras quickly swung to the royal family members present. Each face told its own story, unspoken yet unmistakable. Prince William stood rigid, his jaw tight, his eyes reflecting both suppressed anger and unwavering determination. He was clearly stepping into a role larger than himself, the weight of the crown already pressing onto his shoulders. Beside him, Catherine, always the picture of grace, looked calm at first glance, yet for those who studied her closely, the worry was there, etched into the slight tightening of her lips, and the careful way she held her posture. She was steady, but not untouched. And then there was King Charles. The sight of him startled many. He appeared distant, fragile, and alarmingly ghost-like, as though age and responsibility had drained him. Not only physically, but spiritually, he did not look like the man prepared to lead a nation. He looked like one who was quietly fading, battling both time and fate. His presence, frail as it was, cast a long shadow over the moment, a reminder of human vulnerability within royal grandeur. But perhaps the most shocking part of that morning was not who was there, but who was missing. Queen Camilla's absence did not go unnoticed. In fact, it quickly became the loudest silence of the day. Questions erupted immediately. Was she unwell? Had she been deliberately kept away from the cameras? Or was there something deeper and far more troubling hidden beneath her absence? For centuries, the monarchy had lived by the power of symbols. Appearances mattered more than words, and silence was often the most powerful message of all. And yet, in this instance, the silence surrounding Queen Camilla screamed louder than any official announcement. It left the public restless, speculating, and hungry for answers. News outlets scrambled to interpret the situation, each offering their own theories. Some suggested she was protecting her health. Others believed she was shielding herself from the emotional storm. More daring voices hinted at tensions inside the palace, conflicts that had been carefully hidden until now. Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable. Her absence had magnified the sense of crisis. The image of the royal family, once so carefully curated, was cracking before the world's eyes. Behind the polished gates and the time-worn traditions, the monarchy was confronting something it had always feared: uncertainty. And uncertainty, when draped in royal robes, is not just personal, but national. On that morning, what began as a seemingly normal day in London turned into a chapter of history still unfolding. The crowd outside the palace no longer saw only iron gates and ceremonial guards. They now stared at the uneasy silence of a dynasty standing at a crossroads where every look, every absence, and every whispered word carried the weight of destiny. Has Charles's health deteriorated so much? Since when has he been battling with this health condition? Let's delve into the details of King Charles's health condition. King Charles's deteriorating health. King Charles III is reportedly facing one of the most difficult periods of his life, with growing concerns about his health and legacy. While Buckingham Palace maintains silence, insiders suggest the monarch is battling both frailty and the weight of his reign. What began as a routine procedure for an enlarged prostate in early 2024 revealed a more serious diagnosis: cancer. Since then, his condition has reportedly worsened, raising questions about his strength to continue. Behind palace walls, the king is said to be confronting illness with courage, even as the public remains shielded from the full truth. At Shishase, Charles is no stranger to the demands of duty or the physical toll of a long and active life. But those close to him describe a man who now relies on a walking stick to manage even the simplest of movements. Recently, photographs taken at Sandringham, his 20,000-acre country estate in Norfolk, revealed him leaning heavily on a wooden cane as he strolled through the manicured pathways of the topiary garden. On the surface, the images released through Sandringham's official Instagram page seemed reassuring. Charles was smiling, appearing cheerful, and surrounded by the serene beauty of the estate. But those who know him best insist that the public sees only one side of the story. According to palace insiders, the king is putting on a brave face, masking his pain with an almost stubborn display of optimism. He knows the end is coming. One source confided, describing how the once vigorous monarch now shuffles slowly. A shadow of the man he once was, the walking stick, symbolic of his growing frailty, has become both a physical aid and a quiet reminder of his mortality. Reports also suggest that the king has turned to alcohol, particularly whiskey, in an attempt to dull the relentless discomfort and the despair that accompanies it. He is hitting the bottle. Another insider once said, adding that the combination of declining health and emotional strain has weighed heavily on him. This, they lamented, is not the end that Charles or anyone close to him would have envisioned. A proud man weakened not only by illness but by the sorrow of knowing time is slipping away. Adding to this emotional burden is the unresolved tension with his younger son, Prince Harry. Their relationship, strained for years, has remained a source of pain for Charles throughout his reign. Many observers believe that this fractured bond has only deepened the king's inner turmoil, leaving him longing for reconciliation while also facing the stark reality that opportunities to mend the rift may be running out. Despite these struggles, Charles continues to carry out his duties as best as he can. His appearances, though fewer, are carefully managed to project stability and reassurance to the public and the Commonwealth at large. Those who have seen him in recent months say he draws on reserves of determination to fulfill his role, even as his body betrays him. His composure in public, contrasted with reports of private suffering, paints the picture of a monarch embodying stoicism in the face of adversity. What emerges from these accounts is not simply the story of a man battling illness, but of a king wrestling with the dual weight of personal pain and public responsibility. For a monarch who spent the greater part of his life waiting to ascend the throne, the cruel irony of being struck with illness so early into his reign is not lost on anyone. In the eyes of the world, King Charles III is still the sovereign, still the figurehead of an institution centuries old. But behind palace walls, according to those close to him, he is also a man confronting fragility, regret, and the inevitability of life's end. Whether history remembers this as a sad end or as the brave final chapter of a long and complex life will depend on how the coming months unfold. Apart from the king's frail health, was there another announcement that hit royal fans so hard? Let's find out. The return of Diana's shadow. As Britain struggled to come to terms with the unsettling reports of King Charles's declining health, the palace dropped another announcement, one that landed like a thunderclap across the nation. This time, it wasn't about the king, but about his son and heir, Prince William, alongside his wife, Princess Catherine, revealed what they called the Diana Initiative. On the surface, the announcement sounded straightforward, a reform-minded project designed to modernize and expand the monarchy's charitable work. It was presented as the next step in bringing the royal family into closer alignment with the values and struggles of modern Britain. Yet, it was the choice of name that transformed this initiative into something far bigger than just another royal program. By invoking the name of his late mother, William was not only launching a new effort, he was reviving a memory the monarchy had spent nearly 3 decades trying to control, to soften, to bury beneath layers of official narrative. The mere mention of Diana's name cracked open old doors and reignited emotions that had never truly faded. Princess Diana, who tragically lost her life in a Paris car crash in 1997, remained one of the most influential figures of the modern age. Her impact was not measured only in her beauty or her title, but in her humanity. Diana connected with people in ways few royals ever dared to. She refused to be a figurehead locked behind palace gates. Instead, she stepped into the world's pain and offered empathy. She hugged AIDS patients at a time when fear and stigma isolated them. She walked through minefields not as a stunt, but to shine light on forgotten dangers. She spoke with an honesty that shocked the establishment, but comforted ordinary people. These acts etched her forever into global memory, not as a queen who never was, but as a people's princess who always would be. Now, by naming the initiative after her, William and Catherine were tying Diana's spirit directly to the monarchy's present and its future. It wasn't just charity work anymore. It was legacy work. Within hours of the announcement, social media platforms lit up. Old footage of Diana resurfaced. Her warm embrace of sick children, her effortless laugh, her tender smile that seemed to reach beyond the camera lens. To millions across the world, it felt as if Diana herself had returned. Not in body, but through her son and his wife, finally reclaiming the place history had denied her within the royal institution. But inside palace walls, the reaction was far more complicated. What looked like a heartfelt tribute to the public appeared to others as a bold, even rebellious act. To King Charles, the Diana Initiative stirred ghosts he had tried to keep buried. It reminded him of painful chapters, the collapse of his marriage, the scandals that followed, and the enduring shadow of a woman whose presence seemed to define his reign. even in her absence. For him, this initiative was not just about charity. It was a reopening of wounds that had never truly healed. For Queen Camilla, the announcement cut even deeper. After decades of carefully reconstructing her image, building trust with a skeptical public, and slowly finding her footing beside the king, Diana's name once again loomed large, overshadowing everything. To many, Diana remained the true Queen of Hearts, and now her memory was being revived at the very center of royal life. Camilla's careful efforts risked being undone in an instant. Her absence from recent public events, once dismissed as coincidence or health-related, began to take on new meaning. Insiders whispered that she had distanced herself intentionally, reluctant to endorse a project that could dilute the monarchy's message and reduce her role in the story of the crown. Yet, with Charles weakened, her voice was fading. William and Catherine, it seemed, were no longer waiting for permission. They were stepping forward with confidence, staking a claim not only to the future of the monarchy, but also to its soul. The Diana Initiative was more than a program. It was a statement to the world. It was Diana's legacy reborn. To the palace, it was a quiet revolution. Was Prince William's initiative welcomed with open arms? Was there any silent or open criticism towards the initiative? Let's dive into the details of rivals that silently opposed the initiative. The silent rivalries and subtle power shifts. To the outside world, everything looked calm and orderly. The monarchy moved along with its usual rhythm. Ribbon cuttings, charity galas, handshakes with dignitaries, and carefully staged photographs designed to project unity and strength. To the casual observer, nothing seemed unusual. Yet, behind those glittering public moments, a different story was quietly unfolding. Beneath the polished surface of tradition and ceremony, a subtle but unmistakable shift in power had begun. It was the journalists who picked up the scent first. Reporters who closely monitored the royal calendar noticed that the heartbeat of the monarchy was changing. Kensington Palace, home to Prince William and Princess Catherine, was suddenly generating more headlines, more attention, and more excitement than Clarence House, the seat of King Charles and Queen Camilla. In press briefings, in feature stories, and even in gossip columns, the focus tilted toward William and Catherine. Advisors who once served Charles with absolute loyalty were now redirecting their energies. They began drafting strategies that placed William at the center of attention, not his father. Even palace meetings, once revolving around the king's presence, gradually took on a new tone, shaped around the heir instead. Prince William, long regarded as cautious and somewhat reserved, seemed to transform almost overnight. The hesitation that once defined his public persona gave way to a quiet but undeniable confidence. His speeches began to resonate with sharper conviction. His voice carried weight. His movements, once careful and understated, now revealed purpose and intent. He no longer looked like a man simply waiting for the crown to be handed to him. He looked like someone already carrying its weight on his shoulders. And at every step stood Catherine, the Princess of Wales. She was not just a supporting figure. She was the anchor of William's growing influence, where Camilla's appearances sometimes felt scripted and calculated. Catherine's presence radiated ease and sincerity. Each hospital visit, each school engagement, each warm exchange with ordinary people showcased her natural gift for connection. Her authenticity made her the monarchy's most dependable face. Poll after poll confirmed what the public already felt. Her popularity was soaring. She wasn't merely admired. She was trusted, and in that trust, she surpassed Camilla, sometimes even rivaling Charles himself. The tension, unspoken for months, finally revealed itself in a subtle but telling moment. At a charity luncheon, Camilla was asked about the Diana Initiative, a project honoring the late Princess of Wales. With a polite smile, She replied, "The monarchy has always served with dedication. We don't need to invoke the past to prove it." It was a measured response, carefully phrased, but to the world. It carried another meaning. The press read between the lines. Many interpreted it as a veiled dismissal of Diana's legacy, and by extension of Catherine, who had taken up Diana's memory as part of her mission. Within hours, the headlines blazed with speculation. Social media exploded, framing it as a clash between two women, Camilla embodying the old guard and Catherine symbolizing renewal. Catherine did not answer immediately. She waited. Days later, at a modest event dedicated to the initiative, she spoke with calm authority. Looking out at the audience, she said, "This work isn't about the past. It's about the future we build together." The statement was simple, but its weight was unmistakable. She wasn't just protecting Diana's memory. She was carrying it forward, weaving it into the monarchy's next chapter. And once again, the public leaned toward her. She had managed to turn a potential rivalry into a declaration of vision, one that people found both inspiring and hopeful. Inside the palace, whispers grew louder. Staff who had once carefully avoided comparisons now admitted what was obvious. Influence was shifting. Slowly, steadily. Power was moving away from Charles and Camilla toward William and Catherine. It wasn't a rebellion, nor a demand for abdication. It was something quieter, more deliberate. A rebalancing. One carefully chosen word. One thoughtful gesture. One strategic absence at a time. The monarchy had not yet officially changed hands, but in the minds of many press, public, and even palace insiders, the future was already here. And its names were William and Catherine. Did the opposition just wither away naturally with time? Did it snowball into another opening of old wounds? Let's dig into the details of the fresh rifts that followed the announcement of the initiative. Old wounds. New conflicts. Rivalries within the royal household are rarely simple, and this one was no exception. Just when it seemed the tension had settled, another powerful figure entered the frame, Princess Anne. Anne has long been respected for her unshakable loyalty, her direct and sometimes cutting honesty, and her relentless devotion to duty. Unlike others, she has little interest in the drama and whispers that often swirl through palace corridors. Yet, even someone as disciplined as Anne could not hide her irritation forever. Behind the polished appearances, insiders say she had grown openly frustrated with Camilla. What made their rift remarkable was not just its sharpness, but its history. It was a tension rooted in decades of tangled relationships. To trace the beginnings, one must look back to the early 1970s. At that time, Anne was closely connected with Andrew Parker Bowles, the dashing cavalry officer who later married Camilla. Though their bond eventually cooled, the connection was significant enough to leave its mark. When Camilla then became entangled with Charles, the future king, the situation grew even more complicated. What might have remained a private discomfort slowly blossomed into a lifelong wedge between the two women. By the 1980s, the scandal of the love triangle Charles, Camilla, and Diana was no longer just gossip. It became an open wound for the royal family. The humiliation Diana suffered was felt by the entire nation, and Anne, who admired Diana's strength, never forgot the pain. She found it difficult, perhaps impossible, to forgive Camilla for her part in it. For Anne, it was not only about personal loyalty, but about the dignity of the monarchy itself. When Charles finally married Camilla in 2005, some believed the passage of time would smooth old wounds. Yet, Anne's demeanor told another story. She remained civil, but her warmth was absent. She was courteous in public, but noticeably cool. Her tone and actions, often carrying subtle signals that Camilla would never be a true queen in her eyes. Those close to Anne claimed she saw Camilla as a permanent outsider, accepted by necessity, but never embraced. Recent events have only brought this tension back into sharper view. When Camilla received recognition for her literacy work at the University of London, many noted a small but telling moment as the two women prepared to leave. Anne allowed Camilla to walk ahead. To the casual observer, it looked like a gesture of respect, the natural order of precedence. But those who knew their story interpreted it differently, not as deference, but as silent defiance. A refusal to genuinely acknowledge Camilla's rank. In Anne's world, courtesy could be a weapon as much as kindness. Not long after, Camilla announced her withdrawal from a major royal event, citing illness. On the surface, it seemed routine. Royal engagements are demanding, and health must come first. Yet, the timing stirred questions in the press and behind palace doors. Was Camilla genuinely unwell, or was she stepping back deliberately? Some speculated she was tired of fighting for her place at the center of the monarchy. Others wondered whether she was being quietly pushed aside. The line between personal choice and palace strategy blurred, and whispers only grew louder. Meanwhile, Anne pressed on as she always had. Her schedule remained packed, her presence steady, where Camilla appeared fragile. Anne seemed immovable. The contrast between the two women became almost symbolic. Camilla, fading at times into the background, seemed to represent the monarchy's struggles, its cracks, its controversies, its moments of weakness. And by contrast, Anne embodied resilience, discipline, and a quiet strength that reassured the public. To many observers, this dynamic painted a striking picture of the monarchy's future. On one side stood Camilla, weighed down by the past and battling for legitimacy. On the other stood Anne, firm and unwavering, carrying the duties of the crown with a seriousness that never faltered. And behind them both rose the younger generation, William, Catherine, and their children, ready to claim their place in a changing world. In the end, the story of Anne and Camilla is not just about two women in conflict. It is about what they represent, the clash of old wounds and present responsibilities, the struggle between fading shadows and enduring duty, and the unspoken question of what kind of monarchy will emerge from these rivalries. What are the implications of the announcements on the monarchy? Will the opposition successfully redefine the initiative? Will the crown be able to bear the weight of the drama that might play out in the coming years? Let's find out. Shadows behind the crown. For over a millennium, the British monarchy has survived wars, scandals, abdications, and revolutions. But today, its greatest challenge lies within. King Charles, after 70 years of waiting, finally wears the crown. Yet, his reign already risks being overshadowed by the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II and the undying memory of Diana, the people's princess. Instead of being a monarch of reform, Charles may be seen as one presiding over transition while others quietly prepare for the future. Queen Camilla faces her own battle. Once scorned, she has fought to secure her place. But the ghost of Diana and the rising popularity of Catherine, Princess of Wales, cast long shadows. Though crowned, Camilla fears irrelevance, her role at risk of being eclipsed not by scandal, but by the force of history and public sentiment. The monarchy endures, but power is shifting within its own walls. William and Catherine carry the heaviest burden of all. To them belongs the future of the monarchy. The public looks to them as symbols of modernity, as the pair who can breathe life into an ancient crown without breaking it. Yet this expectation is a dangerous weight. They must modernize but never appear rebellious, lead but never look as though they are snatching the throne from Charles's hands. They must carry the monarchy forward while forever honoring the past. A past haunted by Diana, whose image lingers as both inspiration and unrelenting comparison. Then there is Princess Anne, ever watchful, ever steady. She does not compete for the spotlight, yet her quiet strength makes her presence unavoidable. In her, people see the loyalty and stability that the monarchy so desperately needs. Even as its other members wrestle with rivalry and rumor, all these figures, Charles, Camilla, William, Catherine, Anne, and even the lingering spirit of Diana form the threads of a tapestry that is slowly being rewoven. The crown is not crumbling, but it is shifting. Power is moving in ways that cannot always be spoken aloud, and so the world watches, asking questions that no royal press release will ever answer. Is William being prepared to take the throne sooner than anyone admits? Is Camilla's step back from the spotlight temporary, or the beginning of her quiet eclipse? Has Charles already become more figurehead than king? And most haunting of all, has Diana, in death, returned to shape history once more? Her memory forcing its way into the palace halls, the monarchy thrives on silence. Its greatest power has always been found not in proclamations but in whispers, in absence, in glances exchanged during carefully staged ceremonies. Yet silence cannot mask reality forever. Something is shifting behind the polished smiles and glittering crowns. Change is happening in plain sight. The monarchy is not falling. It is being reshaped deliberately, strategically, and quietly. And as the world leans closer to witness this transformation, one truth becomes clear. The monarchy's deepest secrets are not written in official speeches or carved in stone monuments. They live in rivalry, in memory, and in silence that speaks louder than words. The crown will endure as it always has. But the most pressing question now is not whether it will survive. It is whose head it will rest upon tomorrow.